This Sunday, the Jets host the Denver Broncos at MetLife Stadium. It will be a game as much about maturity as it is about skill. Let's discuss today on Locked On Jets.
You are Locked On Jets, your daily New York Jets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. This is the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Friday, September 27th, 2024, and I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen or first watch every day. Subscribe to the show for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll get new episodes as soon as they're posted. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, please give it a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube and enjoy the show, give this episode a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Jets take on the Denver Broncos this Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Kickoff time 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a chance for the Jets to start 3-1. And when the schedule came out, I think that the over/under for the Jets, the conventional wisdom was that this team probably should start 3-1. I think most of us had the game week 1 against San Francisco penciled in as a loss, but weeks 2, 3, and 4, Tennessee, New England, Denver, all winnable games. 2 of them at home. The Jets have a chance to get off to a great start this season. And I think that sometimes in the NFL, things can snowball on you early in the season in one direction or another. Sometimes, things just kind of misfire for you in the early stages of the season. You put yourself behind the 8 ball, you lose some games early, you should win, and you never recover from them. I think back to the 2016 Jets, who had some bad losses early in that season. And I know that team had a lot of aging players who kind of declined, but Jets had some bad losses. They kind of just fell behind and they never really recovered. That was a talented team. It was a team that had won 10 games the year earlier. But, sometimes you just put yourself in a bad position and you can't recover. The opposite's also true. Sometimes you just get rolling. The team builds confidence. You kind of catch fire and you start to believe. And sometimes that's the type of thing that can propel you through the season. Now, I think by all accounts, the Jets should win this game. Jets are favored. The betting lines all have the Jets as the favorite in this game. Jets are at home. They're the better team. They're coming off a long week. They had 3 extra days to prepare because they played on Thursday Night Football last week. Thursday Night Football is a double-edged sword because the week heading into the game it's a short week, which is always tough. The thing is, though, when you play on Thursday night, your opponent also has a short week. What follows is a long week, and your opponent doesn't have those extra preparation days. So everything's lining up here for a Jets win. And I think objectively, the Jets are the more talented team. So for me, this feels like a game that's as much about your maturity as it is about, the stuff that happens between the lines, as it is about skill. Because I'm not going to say that this is a trap game, but, it was interesting to me last week how often I heard the phrase trap game heading into New England. And I was very skeptical of the idea that was a trap game. I think that, the Jets did not play all that well the first 2 weeks. They did get the win in Tennessee, but it was not a convincing win against the Titans team that, was just frankly not that talented, a team that really should not go very far this year. And they looked bad. They looked bad week 1. A lot of people were expecting a loss, but there's a difference between a loss where, you're right there with the 49ers. You look like one of the NFL's elite teams, and the way the Jets played. The Jets looked horrible in that game. So I don't think the Jets were good enough to have a trap game heading into last week. I think the Patriots also acquitted themselves very well the first 2 weeks of the season. The Patriots entered the year, the team expected to be at the bottom of the NFL standings, and they still might end up there. There's still a pretty good chance they'll end up there. But the first 2 weeks, I think they drew some attention. I think they played better than people were expecting. They were 1-1. They could have easily been 2-0, a couple plays here or there in their week 2 game against Seattle. And then you also have the dynamic short week divisional opponent. Those things are always equalizers. I didn't really think there was much of a chance last week was a trap game. I was a little nervous about it, to be honest with you, because based on the way the Jets and Patriots had played and their styles of play, I was a little concerned the Patriots would be competitive against the Jets. Of course, the Jets went out there and played a great game. I think that this week there's a little bit more danger for the Jets because you've been getting nonstop praise. I mean, all the stuff we laid out, all the reasons the Jets should win this game. And the Jets have been getting nonstop praise, and rightly so. They deserve it after the way they crushed the New England Patriots. I mean, heaven knows we're critical when the Jets play badly. They certainly deserve praise when they play as well as they did week 3 on Thursday night. They're going up against a Denver team that, played well last week against Tampa Bay, but a team that really has not looked good through the first 3 weeks of the season. They're at home. They have had these extra days to prepare. Again, nothing but praise. And there's also a big week ahead of them. Of course, we know next week the Jets head to London to play the Minnesota Vikings, a Minnesota team quarterbacked by our old buddy Sam Darnold. That is surprising people. So big game next week, big trip. I think players are always going to be excited to go to London. I think a London game is always going to get your attention. So I think for a game to actually be a trap game, or at least for a game to potentially be a trap game, you have to be looking past the current opponent. And I think that for a team that's not mature, this week could provide you with some danger. I think the Jets are a mature team, though. We'll know a lot more about this by 4 or 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon. But I think this is a mature Jets team. I say that in part because they have so many veterans. They have guys who have been around the league before. They have guys who understand the dangers in looking past an opponent. But this is the type of game that can be mundane. And we've been talking a lot about how the Jets have big expectations for this season. We've been talking a lot about, are the Jets Super Bowl contenders? Well, being a Super Bowl contender means playing toe-to-toe against the best teams in the league. And, the Jets didn't do so well week 1 against San Francisco. They're going to have other opportunities ahead. Minnesota looking like a better team than most of us expected to be, especially after they lost their quarterback, Sam Darnold playing well the early part of the season. You have Buffalo ahead. There are going to be some tests for the Jets to go toe-to-toe. But being a contender also means taking care of business against the teams you should beat and, handling them. Because when you're a good team, suddenly you start drawing attention across the league. I'm sure the Jets drew Denver's attention by the way they played against New England. Of course, the Jets drew attention through the offseason. Aaron Rodgers coming back, the big signings they brought in, Tyron Smith, obviously the guy who's not here, Hassan Reddick, Mike Williams. Jets made a lot of splashy additions this offseason. So they drew plenty of attention. Of course, they have the storyline with Aaron Rodgers returning. They have, one of the most famous players in the world playing for them at quarterback. And then they went out there and crushed the Patriots. So now that you're going to get Denver's best shot in this game. The Broncos are going to be motivated. The Jets used to be the team everybody looked past. In years past, during the Adam Gase years, during the Todd Bowles years, and during the early Rex Ryan years, the Jets were the team that could be your trap game because you look past the Jets, you thought we could beat them easily. Not anymore. The Jets are a team that's going to get Denver's best shot. And this game is a test of maturity because a mature team will go out there and take care of business against an inferior opponent. I don't think there are many people out there that think if the Jets play their A game and the Broncos play their A game, that Denver's got much of a shot. If these teams play at an equal level, the Jets will win. The only way the Jets can lose is if they play at a bad level and the Broncos play well. And the only way the Jets can go out and play poorly, or maybe the most likely way for the Jets to go out and play poorly, is to look past this game and look to London. I don't think it's going to happen. I have confidence in this Jets team. Last week changed my perspective on this team. I was waiting for that type of performance. I was waiting for a performance where the level of play would match the hype. And we got it. And now we have a Jets team that, heading into this game, at least, I think we can be confident in. We'll see how things look Sunday, 4 or 5 o'clock. But at this point, I feel good about this game, and I feel very good about the Jets getting to 3-1. And one of the reasons I feel good about the Jets getting to 3-1 is the talent level. But another reason is I just think the Jets stylistically on offense match up pretty well against this Denver defense. And here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we're going to talk about recipes the Jets have for beating Denver's signature on defense. Again, that's continuing this Friday game preview edition of Locked On Jets. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with handsome 3% retirement boosts on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quickly as 15 minutes. And PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup's not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL. It's one word with no space, LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listener, first watch every day. Big shout out to you every dayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. New episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. Jets and Broncos week 4 action, Sunday at MetLife Stadium, 1 p.m. Eastern. Jets looking to go to 3-1. It feels good to say that. We haven't really had many opportunities to say that in the history of this podcast. Everything's laid out there for the Jets. Things have really lined up for the Jets this season when you talk schedule-wise. They have everything at their disposal to get off to a big start. Now it's about taking care of business against an opponent that I think most objective observers would view as inferior. But it's not just about the talent level. I like the way this Jets offense matches up against the Denver defense. Now, we'll see what happens on Sunday. Sometimes matchups look great on paper, and once the ball's kicked off, it changes a little bit. But I think the Jets are better equipped to beat this Denver defense than a lot of other teams are. Denver likes to blitz a lot with their defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph is a guy who lives in Jets lore. If you're not familiar with him, he was a college quarterback at Colorado, and he played during the Kotite era. The Jets converted him to corner. He was an undrafted free agent signing. He was a quarterback converted to the defensive side of the ball at corner. And Rich Kotite's Jets, and if you know anything about the Kotite Jets, it was a dreadful experience. They put him one-on-one in a Sunday night game against the Raiders, against the future Hall of Famer Tim Brown, and went about as well as you would expect. Joseph is now the Broncos defensive coordinator after a stint as the Broncos head coach. Interesting that it happens occasionally, but a guy is the head coach of the team, gets fired, and then comes back later on as the coordinator. Vance Joseph likes to blitz a lot, and I like this Jets offense against that style of defense. The reason I like the Jets offense against that style of defense is that the Jets offense through the early part of the season with Aaron Rodgers has been an offense where the ball gets out quickly. Now, against New England, we saw Rodgers extend some plays with his legs a little bit more than he did the first 2 weeks. But objectively, he is 40. He is coming off that injury. He's still I said this through the offseason. There will be moments where Rodgers will be able to extend plays. I'm not saying that he's going to be incapable of ever doing it, but I think the rate at which you're going to see that is going to be lower than it was at Green Bay. I think Rodgers is going to be more of a pocket passer than he's been in the past. And one of my concerns heading into the season was, would Rodgers adapt to that? Would he insist on playing his old style where he has to, scramble left and right? Or would he adopt and become more of a pocket passer? And I think, through the first 3 weeks of the season, he's adapting. His game is changing. He's getting the ball out quicker than he did in Green Bay. This is very much a take the snap, get the ball out quick. It's a read the defense pre-snap, figure out where the vulnerability is, change something if I need to change. If I need to adjust a route, I'll do it, and get the ball out quickly. And that suited the Jets pretty well, especially the last 6 quarters or so, last 6.5 quarters or so of football. The offense really found something. It was when Nathaniel Hackett. I hate to credit Nathaniel Hackett with anything, but the Jets started spreading the field against Tennessee in week 2. And that changed everything. When you spread the field, the defense has a tougher time disguising things because every receiver out there needs to be covered. So when you're using all that space, you're stretching the defense out. It becomes much more difficult to disguise things. If you have a very tight, condensed formation, you have a lot of bodies near the line of scrimmage. There are a lot more potential blitzers, a lot more potential coverage combinations. When you spread them out, the defense kind of has to declare what it wants to do. And that's a very dangerous thing when you're up against a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who is the master of pre-snap reads and the master of pre-snap adjustments. And I think the Jets found something in that game against the Tennessee Titans. I think it's the type of thing that can really pay dividends against a heavy blitz defense because, again, blitzing defenses thrive on deception. They don't want you to know which guys are coming. So if you're lining up with 2 tight ends, you're going to have a lot of guys in the box. That's a lot of potential blitzers, a lot of potential guys who could cover, who's covering this guy, who's covering that guy, who's blitzing. You send guys out wide. You send guys into the slot, away from the formation. Somebody's got to follow them. And that guy's not going to be a blitzer. You force the defense to declare. And the other aspect of that is when you blitz, getting the ball out quickly is a great way to beat the blitz because blitzers can't get home in time. And nothing beats a blitz better than just like the short pass. There's most hot routes in the NFL, especially with the more advanced quarterbacks, they're just throwing the ball to where the area the blitzer occupied. So if a linebacker, rushes the passer, a second level linebacker rushes the passer, receiver just runs to the area the linebacker was standing before the snap, and quarterback dumps in the ball quickly. Quick strike offense. That's the type of thing that can beat the blitz. And another thing blitzes thrive on is messing up blocking assignments. Essentially, like, the disguise is meant so that the offensive line is blocking the wrong guy. Before any given play, the offensive line is trying to figure out the 5 most likely pass rushers, and they set their blocking assignments accordingly. And if you ever see like a free runner go through the line of scrimmage, you wonder, how did that happen? Odds are the offense messed up picking the 5 guys who are most likely to rush. So the guy who was blitzing was not accounted for. And, disguises help with that. Again, Rodgers is as good as anybody at figuring out the tells of the other defense. So I think this is going to be a game where you'll see a lot of Breece Hall and Braylon Allen used in the passing game. As we've talked about, the one thing that's a little bit dicey with this Jets quick strike offense, with this Jets offense that wants to throw a lot of quick passes, is outside of Garrett Wilson, they don't have a lot of guys who fit that scheme. Garrett gets a lot of quick separation, so you can run a slant, he can run a lot of quick routes. He'll be able to shake his defender very, very easily, and Rodgers will be able to get him the ball. The other Jets receivers aren't necessarily suited for that style of play. Mike Williams is more of a big guy. You can make the contested catch, you can make the spectacular catch. I don't think he's suited for this offense. Now, that's talent wins out to a degree. Mike Williams is going to produce for the Jets. I'm revising my expectations downward, though, for Williams, because I don't think that, there's going to be as many deep throws. I mean, even when Rodgers is throwing deep, it tends to be, again, a little bit different week 3, but through the first 3 weeks of the season, for the most part, even when Rodgers is throwing deep, he's made a decision early in the play that this is a matchup he likes to attack, or the defender's playing with leverage that leaves him vulnerable to a back shoulder pass. But that's the type of thing Williams will take advantage of. But I think that Williams is going to be less a focal point of this offense than I would have guessed 3 weeks ago. And I think it's going to be more focused on, getting the ball to the running backs quickly, Breece and Braylon, get into them and let them make plays. Because when you're a running back in the receiving game, once you catch the ball, we've talked about this on the show, it's not quite being a running back, because they're blocking the same way. Once you catch the ball, it's about making a play, though. You're not going to have like a guard pulling on a counter play, but it's still about making a play. And the other aspect of this is that a great way to beat the blitz is a screen, because when the defense blitzes, they're sending guys at the quarterback. And sometimes you'll just see you'll see the offense let blitzers run through, because those guys are running themselves out of the play. If the design is for a screenplay, usually screens get out quickly. Usually the quarterback dumps the screen out quickly. So guys who are rushing the passer up the field just run themselves out of the play. You just throw the ball over. Quarterback catches the snap, just throws the ball over the blitzers. The blitzers have taken themselves out of the play. Again, another area where Breece and Braylon can really take advantage. So I really like this matchup for the Jets. I think schematically, this is about as good of a matchup as you can get. I think Rodgers is going to do very well against a heavy blitzing team, as long as the offensive line protects and, as long as the offensive line holds up. And again, Rodgers helps with that. I mean, I do think the offensive line is playing well for the Jets. I think maybe some of their praise, though, is just Rodgers getting the ball out, Rodgers making quick decisions, getting the ball where it needs to go. Now, here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we'll turn our attention to the other side of the ball. This Jets defense, which has been an enigma through the early part of the season. It'd be interesting to see what they do stylistically against a rookie quarterback at Bo Nix. We'll talk about what their options are as we continue here on this Friday edition of Locked On Jets. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So you don't need to wait for the game to start. FanDuel's there for you when the game starts with all the latest updated information. But you can also put money down on the Jets before the game. Again, a $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Jets currently 7.5-point favorites over the Broncos on Sunday. Again, everybody's expecting the Jets to win. Games really attest to maturity, because by all objective measures, the Jets are the better team and playing at home and off a long week. So again, $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play on FanDuel.com. Again, visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Friday, getting you ready for Week 4 action. The New York Jets will host the Denver Broncos Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Jets' first Sunday home game of the year. Jets opened their home schedule last Thursday against the Patriots. Very very unique circumstances last week when I can't remember many times the teams had a week 3 home opener on Thursday night. This is more normal for the fans. Those Thursday night games are really tough on the fans. A nice 1:00 start for those of you heading out to MetLife Stadium on Sunday to see the Jets take on the Denver Broncos. And the Jets are up against a rookie quarterback. I think it's always better to get the rookie quarterbacks early in the season. Bo Nix is probably as prepared as any rookie quarterback's ever been to enter the league. Doesn't mean he's going to be the best rookie quarterback ever. It just means that he's seen more because he started more games than any quarterback in college football history. But still, you've seen him struggle at points. Playing game experience matters when you're talking about rookie quarterbacks because it gets you. It's like anything. Practice makes perfect. There actually used to be this study in the past. Used to be this that studied what translates from college to the NFL. One of the biggest indicators of success for college quarterbacks was games started in college. It's changed a little bit in recent years. There have been some less experienced quarterbacks who have gone on to have success in the NFL, but you can still see why starting a lot of college games matters because you just see different defensive schemes. You get more used to timing. You get more used to the complexities of the quarterback position. Quarterback, maybe more than any other position in sports, is a spot where practice only gets you so far. Game experience really matters. That said, even with all of Bo Nix's college experience, college defenses just aren't as complex as what you see in the NFL. You'll see less instances of defensive linemen dropping into coverage. You'll see, coverage schemes that just aren't as complicated. And defensive coordinators love toying with young quarterbacks. I talked about this a bit yesterday, that every time, even when rookie quarterbacks really have standout seasons, you see some struggles in the early part of the year. The rookie quarterbacks who have success, it tends to click early. Maybe after like 7-8 games, it really starts to fire for them and they really start to figure it out. But there still is a learning curve. I mean, it was true. You could look through most rookie quarterbacks. There's usually at least 1 or 2 really rough games in the early part of the season. And there's even like a rough early stretch where they're still trying to figure it out. But eventually, they click. That's in November, December. So you always like to, whenever the schedule comes out, we always talk about how, schedule release day can be a little overrated and people can read too much into certain things. But one thing you always like to see when you get rookie quarterbacks on your schedule, you want them early because they're still trying to decipher what defenses are doing. Now, as we know, the Jets defense, not a super complex scheme. Robert Saleh believes in simplicity, and that's understandable. I actually think that teams overcomplicate things at times with their schemes. NFL is a very league with a ton of nuances in the play calling teams make, but there's something to be said for keeping it simple. Yes, I know the opponent, like it's simple for the opponent, but it's also simple for your guys. When your guys don't need to think about like a million complex assignments, when they're just doing the same thing over and over, it becomes instinctive. It becomes instinctual. When you move to a new city, if you walk around it enough, you instinctually know where you're going. After a few weeks, you figure out exactly where you need to go to get to anywhere. You don't need to look at your phone. You don't need to look at the map anymore. Same thing. If you run the same play over and over, you know exactly what you need to do in any situation. But I think this week, you may see a few wrinkles from the Jets. I think it makes sense to try and force mistakes because this defense has been up and down the first couple of weeks, and we saw a bit of a different Jets defense last week against New England. And I'm wondering, was that a game plan specific thing? Because the Patriots are a very heavy run team. The Patriots were not a team that could really threaten the Jets down the field. Patriots run an offense that's unlike most offenses you see in the NFL. Very conservative ball control, not an offense with a lot of big playmakers. Jets, pretty much knew that the Patriots wouldn't be able to get the ball down the field. So you could see more blitzes. You could see, more boxes where you're trying to take away the run. Was it a one-time thing, or is it maybe the Jets coaching staff adapting a little bit? Is it a situation where the Jets realize, we don't have Bryce Huff anymore. We don't have John Franklin Myers anymore. Hassan Reddick's not here. Jermaine Johnson's not here. Will McDonald's looking promising, but he's our only defensive end who's really a plus pass rusher at this point. Maybe we need to blitz a little bit more. I wouldn't hate that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. Now, the one danger is Bo Nix on the ground. Bo Nix can scramble, so guys will need to be disciplined in their rush lanes. But I like the idea of throwing a few new looks at Bo Nix in this game because rookie quarterbacks struggle when they see looks they haven't seen before. And the Jets defense, it's a work in progress. It's going to be interesting to see how they adapt through the course of the season. Of course, part of this might be when will they get Reddick back? Obviously not for this game, but it'll be interesting to see, does Robert Saleh dial up more blitzes? Does he throw more unique looks to try and compensate for a defensive line that doesn't have as much talent as the Jets have had in the past? That's a question for weeks ahead. But I think against a rookie quarterback, no matter what the situation is, especially because you have corners you can trust to hold up on an island, I'd like to see more looks from the Jets this week. I think that this is an opportunity for the Jets to go out there and maybe perhaps rattle a rookie quarterback and steal a few turnovers, because if the Broncos turn the ball over in this game, again, we've seen this from the other side. I mean, how many times through the years have we talked about the Jets, how the Jets, when you're the less talented team, you can't make mistakes because it's tough enough to win without handing the other team short fields when the other team has more talent. This time the Jets have more talent. So the Jets get turnovers in this game. It's very difficult to see how they lose. And I think their defensive play calling can kind of feed into that. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. If you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, give it a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, give this episode a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Enjoy the game. We'll be back to discuss what happens between the Jets and the Broncos after the game.